Well, of course, you know it was a heated auction, perhaps unexpected, at least as long or short ago as 4 or 5 weeks, when it appeared at least likely that Disney might choose not to increase the bid. But of course, they did significantly, but not nearly enough to beat out Comcast. You know, the reporting I had was that anything above 16 would be considered sort of a very, very high bid. Some people using different adjectives to describe it. But of course, coming in at 17.28, well, that was perhaps unexpected, but not by the market, as you know, Andrew. In fact, shares of Sky had been trading to almost, it would seem, a point where there was an expectation you would get the two parties bidding this up perhaps into the low 17s. And that is what happened. It's a, 49, almost 48 and a half, $49 billion overall deal for our parent company when you include debt. There's a look at the final bids, of course. One question we still have is, will Disney, when it buys Fox, or will Fox, prior to being purchased by Disney, choose to tender its 39% stake into the 1728, or try to hold out in some fashion for an even better deal, or for the prospect of some sort of a transaction that might involve the 30% of Hulu that Comcast controls? That's unclear. People telling me it's a bit premature right now on Hulu, but certainly our parent company would like to figure it out. And if there is the possibility of a deal, one would expect they may be willing to join in those conversations. You're going to have Comcast down. We can see that right now. The stock has been trading quite nicely over the last few weeks, perhaps in the prospect that Disney would come back and even win this bidding. But if you speak to Comcast senior executives, they will certainly talk to you about the long term and the view that Brian Roberts has always had. And we know this in part as shareholders as well, given also as employees, that it's not about year one or year two. It really is looking down the road as long as 10 or 20 years in terms of positioning the company for what he believes is its most advantageous future. And, well, Comcast does not own much in the way of any foreign assets and has not had a significant business, really, in any country other than our own. And that will change dramatically with the purchase of Sky. Yes, it is in the distribution via satellite business, which certainly in this country has not been going particularly well for Dish or DirecTV, at least the old DirecTV as owned by AT&T. But Comcast will tell you it's about a lot more than that. There's a streaming service. There's a deal with BT to use their broadband. There is an enormous amount of content, and there are 23 million customers where the competition is not quite as strong, guys. So that's how Mr. Roberts sees it. There were many who believed he would come out of this being the battle for Fox and Sky with something, and Comcast has succeeded in doing that, despite what may be some near-term pressure on the share price.
David, two quick questions. One is, tactically, from a deal, dark arts of deal perspective, clearly by pressing Disney to pay up for Fox, it put Comcast in a better position to make this deal. But the question that, and you raised it or just suggested it, this idea that there's less competition in the future, this goes to sports rights and things in Europe. Right now, Comcast Sky would control, obviously, the big Premier League football rights. Those rights will come up in the future. The question is whether you think long-term the Facebooks, the Googles of the world come in and try to bid for those assets or bid for those rights, or whether you think Comcast won't have to compete for those kinds of prices.
Yeah, Andrew, listen, you raise a question many of us have as to whether or not you will start to see significant competition from the other media companies, which are far larger, by the way, than even Disney or Comcast, and whether they will compete aggressively, whether it be Amazon, Google, or Facebook for things like sports rights. I don't know the answer. It's certainly a possibility. It certainly gets discussed a great deal. It could be potentially a threat given their ability to distribute globally as well. But for the likes of Comcast right now, they do feel that the sports deals that are in place at Sky, plus their ability to take some content from over here and distribute it globally, is going to aid the overall company. And again, I guess, Andrew, you know, maybe we'll be employees for a really long time and we'll all benefit. It is a 17% compounded annual growth rate for this stock since inception. That's pretty good. That's what they tend to focus on. Anybody who owns the stock for a year or two, they seem to consider just renters.